think it is very good that today we are going to have very important discussion, diskusi yang sangat menarik sekali ya tentang bagaimana industrial ecology. And we are very lucky because in front of us we have Professor Arnold Tucker from Leiden University. Welcome to FKP discussion series, Pak Tucker. Yeah, it's good to see you here, and we are glad to learn from you. Professor Tucker will share on topic on introduction to industrial ecology and international society of industrial ecology. I think this is very important topic that very timely in the case of Indonesia, where we are dealing with a lot of natural resources processing, but of course we still like behind in creating value, more respect to environments and others. So I think this is very important topic for discussions. And then for the second speaker, kita ada Pak Victor Pirmana. Pak Victor Pirmana ini dari Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Padjadjaran. Pak Victor juga researchers di Center for Economic and Development Studies CEDS Unpad dari Padjadjaran. Okay, because we have run out of time for about 30 minutes, so I would like to give time to Professor Tucker to give a talk for about 30 minutes. Yeah, hopefully it's 30 minutes, and then after that maybe Pak Victor can give your talk for about maybe 20 minutes, and then the rest we can do discussion with the audience.
Yeah.
So without overdue, I would like to give time to Professor Tucker to give your presentation. Please, time is yours.
Yeah. Okay. If I'm right, I share my screen at the moment. Maybe Victor, you have to close your microphone because otherwise I hear an echo.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, Victor, you probably have to mute your microphone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, there we go. And thank you, Victor, because I don't hear the echo anymore. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present Industrial Ecology and the International Society of Industrial Ecology. As I will explain later, the International Society of Industrial Ecology is a membership organization of scientists of about 1,000 people. The current president is Professor Ming Xu from Tsinghua University, and I will be from more or less, I think, April. I will be the next president. So I'm very pleased that I can have this talk here. And now, as I will explain later, I think it is important to strengthen industry ecology in connections with groups like UNPAD, FEP, and Sustainable Development Goal Centers in countries like Indonesia. Well, let's not talk too much about me. Let's first talk about industry ecology. And I have to apologize if you know a lot about material flow analysis, a lot about LCA, a lot about environmental input-output. This is very, very well known to you, but sometimes it helps to explain in a very simple way what we do in the field of industry ecology. I would say essentially what I think we are now at the Center for Economic and Development Studies, part of the Faculty of Economics and Business. So this faculty is full of economic people. They look at the economy in monetary terms. How much money can you make, in which way, who is trading with whom, and so on. That is all in monetary terms. The system of national account is counting money. What we do, we say, well, to understand the environmental impacts and to understand the resource uses and how that supports the economy, we actually have to do physical analysis of the economy. And then we have three main tools. The first is called material flow analysis. You follow the materials in a country or at a local level or at global level, and you see how they accumulate in the society. Like here, we have a lot of materials in the building where I'm sitting at the moment. That is material flow analysis. Then we have life cycle assessment. Victor was so nice to give me a cup of coffee, and as you see, this is a throwaway cup. Well, there is a huge debate if this is not actually very bad for the environment versus, let's say, a glass cup that you have to wash all the time. But yeah, washing, you do that with hot water and so on. So you have detergents. So maybe if you look at these kind of things over the full life cycle, maybe actually this one is better. It could be, I don't know. But of course, if I drink a year coffee here, then I need about, 200 working days. This cup, I have 200 cups spent. And hopefully my glass cup is still there. Yeah, that is what we call life cycle assessment. You look at the product over the whole life cycle, and you look at the resource use and emissions over the whole life cycle. And the other thing, that is a kind of a hybrid thing, that is environmental input-output analysis. That uses economic input-output models, but we link that to the emissions by sector and the resource use per sector. And that is the advantage of that tool is that it really gives a picture of the full economy, because input-output covers the whole economy, but it's rather aggregated. A life cycle assessment I could do for a coffee cup, I can do it for my mobile phone. Material flow analysis, I can do it for all the materials, I can do it maybe for steel and so on. And if you combine this with social and economic information, you really can assess a lot about what we call the dominant economy or the sustainable development goals. You can measure, let's say, how much income people have via the economic analysis. You can look at socio-economic characteristics. How many hours have people to work? Is there a big income disparity? Or can people really relatively easily go to higher education? And of course, we have the whole environmental kind of impacts in the picture. So let me now discuss very briefly the three tools. So material flow analysis maps the stocks and flow per year at country, global, or local level. You can do this for products or materials, and it can be very detailed. What you see at the right, at the top, that is a study done by one of my PhDs. She came from China, and she looked at all the copper flows in China. So you see in the top, you see copper ore import. That's the brown arrow at the left. You see then it goes to copper melting, and then you see output of copper. Then in the orange part, it goes to products. The products are exported and imported. And then I can see it because I see the screen is a kind of overlapping at the moment. But then it goes to use. Of course, you can imagine China built a lot of high-speed railways. You need a lot of copper wire for the overhead and so on. So in the last years, they produced a lot of copper, and the copper is now in the society in the form of overhead wires. Yeah, and that is why you see not a lot of waste flows yet. What the Chinese did, they imported a lot of copper waste and used that scrap for their primary production. So what you can do here is just make a map of how much copper do we need in a certain year. Of course, the overhead wires for the railway, maybe in 20 years, they are outdated or they are spent. Then you take them back. And there will be a moment in time where the amount of secondary copper may be as big as the primary copper flow. And with these kind of tools, you can predict that. So this is very important. At this moment, copper, China needs to have primary production. They needed that for steel. And there is there something wrong at the moment? Because, and otherwise the people that have a discussion, can they close the microphone? But it can be that maybe in 30 years from now, the amount of secondary steel is so big that you don't need primary steel production anymore. So for planning your production, this is of base materials, this is a very important tool. You can also do that in regional level. There is a very famous area in Denmark that I show on the picture at the bottom, where you have, I think there's one industry that creates wastewater, but that is hot. The hot wastewater is used in a fish farm. To warm the water there, you can produce fish. I think there's fertilizer production with waste flows that are again used by another industry. So if you organize your industry smart and you put the right industries together, it can very well be that the waste for one industry can be used in the other industry. And that, of course, is very good because the next industry doesn't have to buy primary materials and you don't create waste. So these are examples of what we can do with material flow analysis. Then we go to life cycle assessment. I already tried to explain, like what we do is you define something like a functional unit. Let's say Arnold Tucker wants to have a container for his coffee for 1 year working at Unpet. Yeah, that is. And then if I do that with these kind of paper cups, I probably need about 200 cups. And if I do that with a glass cup, I probably need only 1 cup, but I need to wash it 200 times. Well, what you then can do is look at, if I make a paper cup, I need raw materials. I need maybe auxiliary materials like electricity in the production of the paper cup. The paper cup is used. This one will end into a waste bin after this meeting is done. And there will be waste management. So in a very simple way, you can see you have raw material extraction. That is basically the trees for the paper and that kind of things. You have the production of the cup with, again, auxiliary materials, electricity, maybe water, I don't know. You have the use, that is not so exciting. The use of this paper cup doesn't create a lot of impacts. But in all the steps, you have emissions, let's say from CO2, from SO2, from NOx. And what we do is we add all these emissions to a total. So let's say that we end up with a total of CO2 and a total of CH4. And then we know that these emissions are greenhouse gases. We also know that CH4 per kilogram is 11 times more powerful greenhouse gas as CO2. And then we basically say, well, if I have 1 kilogram of CO2, that counts for 1 kilogram CO2 equivalent. But if I have then on top of that from my life cycle an emission of CH4, 1 kilogram, then all of a sudden I have 12 kilogram of CO2 equivalent global warming. So what we try to do here is to group all the emissions in types of impacts. And then all of a sudden you can make an estimate of the total environmental impact of this paper cup. The interesting thing is you can also do that for future scenarios. That goes very advanced. Maybe we find out a better way of making this cup. And there is someone in a laboratory and says, I have found a way to use much less water in making the paper and pulp for it. Great. Then we can put that as an assumption in our LCA that maybe paper making in 10 years will be much cleaner than today. And what we hope, of course, as well, that the electricity that we use will be much cleaner as we use today. Your president, if I'm right, promised in relation to the COP in Baku that you would close your coal-fired power plants and replace it by more renewable energy. So that implies that the amount of CO2 per kilowatt hour of electricity used in Indonesia will be lower in the future. Well, we can make scenarios for that, and that is what we call ex ante LCA. We look at the future and then we try to estimate how, let's say, the making of the paper cup looks like. Then we go to environmental input-output analysis. I'm not going to give you a course that normally takes 3 months in 5 minutes about input-output. But the basic idea is that you have an input-output table, an economic input-output table of Indonesia, let's say 100 sectors. And if you have the car industry, you know, the car industry needs glass from the glass industry, steel from the steel industry, electricity from the power grid, and so on. And that are all other sectors in this input-output table. And what we do then is, let's say that the car industry has a turnover of 1 billion euros. And let's say you need 250 million euros of steel. You buy that from the steel industry. That is met in this input-output table. Maybe you need 50 million euro of glass. Maybe you need 100 million euro of electricity. You have an output of cars, hopefully 1 billion, because then you break even. You have at least no losses. The cars are being used in the other sectors. So the input-output table also indicates who is buying the cars from the car industry. So you get a matrix that gives all the relations in the economy of Indonesia. And now it becomes interesting because in this input-output table, I also have the emissions of the car industry, I have the emissions of the steel industry, I have the emissions of the electricity industry. And totally at the end, you have what we call final demand. And so people like you and me spending your money on transport, on housing, on food. But since you have the input-output table, let's say that Indonesia spends 1 billion on food, or let's say 1 billion on paddy rice, you can say, well, so much of this 1 billion euro is added value for the retail industry, so much for supermarkets, so much goes to the farmers, so much goes to, let's say, the companies that produce fertilizers, and so on. Now, what you can do then is, since I have for each sector the amount of emissions and resource extraction in my table, if I buy 1 billion euro of rice in Indonesia, that sector contributes so much. I have an emission per euro. I can make an estimate of the amount of emissions and resource use that is related to the final consumption of rice. That is input-output analysis. And then you can do very nice analysis that is shown in the bottom picture. You can actually say, like, what is the footprint, in this case, the carbon footprint of an average citizen in a country, because I have the food expenditure, I have the expenditure on houses, I have the expenditure on transport. And then you see that actually difficult to read for you, but on the top are the rich countries. And they have a high carbon footprint of up to 20 tons per person. And let's say the lower income countries are in the bottom, and they have low footprints. The red bar is the target of 2 tons per capita that we hopefully can reach, let's say, 2030, 2040, which is clear that many countries don't reach that. So that's what we can do with environmental input-output analysis. So what I showed here is that you have 3 tools that can analyze the economy at different levels, not in economic terms, or not only in economic terms, but you can calculate the environmental impacts of value change. And that is super important for all kinds of applications. Let me skip this. This is the relation with other models, computational general equilibrium models, energy models, and integrated assessments. The common denominator is the advantage is they have dynamic features. So they may take into account price elasticities and that kind of things, but they usually are very aggregated. So if I want to develop a circular economy strategy for this mobile phone, forget about it, that an energy model or an integrated assessment model can help me. I need a material flow analysis and an LCA to see if I, let's say, make the battery of this mobile phone replaceable, the whole phone repairable, what kind of environmental impacts we have, because the product is very specific. The way how I analyze this product will be different as the computer in front of what I sit. And again, there is a big screen here on the table. Again, if you want to improve the screen, you will have a different analysis. So let me go quickly through a few illustrations. Maybe this even goes too far, but what one of my PhDs did in this picture, he looked at all the steel production in the whole world and all the building material production in the whole world for an estimate of the future amount of buildings that we have to build. Yeah, and you can imagine that particularly in countries like Indonesia, in Asia, in India. Yeah, since you still have, I think, particularly the people who don't have a lot of money, they live with a lot of people in small places, maybe even in certain areas in Africa, you will have shanty towns. So if you want to give people a decent life, it is clear you need to build houses. Yeah, you need to build infrastructure. And that is what I see happening in Jakarta. Let's see, hopefully this afternoon I can take the whoosh back to Jakarta, which is great because I recall that 4 years ago when you had to go to Bandung, then you took either the train or a bus and you were busy. Or sometimes people even picked me up with a car and you were in a traffic jam. And now in half an hour you're in Jakarta. That is great. And you see the public transport system in Jakarta as being improved and improved. But you use a lot of cement, a lot of steel, and that creates a lot of carbon. So what my PhD did, he looked at the future production of steel and cement and stone, and he looked at options to reduce the use per, let's say, square meter. He looked what would happen if we would decarbonize production. So here he made actually an LCA for the future, for the total amount of building materials in the future. Now, and then you see that if you don't do anything, we now have about 3 to 4 gigaton of emissions for creating our building and construction materials. That would go up easily to 5 gigaton in 2060. Given the carbon reduction targets that we have, that's too much. And you saw, if we look very carefully and we decarbonize the energy system, we may go to steel production by hydrogen. We reduce the amount of steel used in buildings by better designs and that kind of things. Yeah, you see with the green kind of thing that we can actually reduce the emissions quite a lot. And we can stay within the trajectory that is needed to have a maximum temperature rise of 2 degrees. So this is an example of literally a physical analysis, a big picture of something that is important globally, and how can we stay within planetary limits where we build the houses that the people need. There are some other examples. I give one example of the PhD of Victor. He did a very nice analysis, a what-if analysis. What would happen? You have a lot of nickel in Indonesia. Your government has as ambition that you don't want to export nickel anymore, just like that. But you want to make the products with nickel and create more added value in Indonesia. So Victor did a kind of like a what-if analysis. What if we use all the nickel that Indonesia can generate in the mines in Kalimantan and other places for making electric vehicle batteries and making electric vehicles, and we export the electric vehicles. And so what he did, he added an electric vehicle sector and a battery production sector to the current Indonesian input-output table. And instead of exporting the nickel, as happening is now, he assumed that the nickel would stay in Indonesia and we would produce cars with that. And then what he did here is look at the economic impacts. And you see the electric vehicle production goes up enormously. We create an enormous amount of added value. We create an enormous amount of additional jobs in Indonesia. And of course, we create environmental impacts, but the external cost of the impacts are not super high. Then we have another example of Irlan Roem. That is another in UNPAD PhD that works now in Leiden. And he is graduating next month. And what he did, he looked at the Human Development Index versus the carbon footprint of Indonesian people. But he did that at province level. And he also looked at income quintiles by province. And what we try to do there is to understand, maybe you have a very high income in Jakarta, but Jakarta is a very busy city. That is not nice to live there. So maybe the quality of life and the Human Development Index is not so high there. But for sure, if you live in Jakarta and, you have a high emission, and particularly if you're rich. And it could very well be that people with a reasonable income on a nice island, I saw that one of you had this nice picture behind it with the beach and palm trees and that kind of things. I can imagine that quality of life is much better there. So what Elon tries to do is to see, where in which part of Indonesia you have the highest quality of life for the lowest income. And that again, that is for development studies is very important. Then you have a last example, and Maxentius, that is now a colleague of you. That is A.D. Viloso. He is an LCA specialist. He graduated at CML about 10 years ago. And he looked at treatment options for empery-free bunches in palm oil systems. So he actually looked at waste management options, did a number of scenarios. And again, you saw this is the carbon emissions per scenario, and you really saw they differ quite a lot. So again, if you have a ministry that is dealing with waste management, this kind of studies really help a lot in showing what are the best waste management options. I'm coming now to industry ecology and the society, and I think just need another 5 minutes, and then we can have maybe some questions and answers. So again, key tools, material flow analysis, life cycle assessment, and input-output analysis. We complement the traditional economic and energy modeling communities. And we can answer questions like, do we fit our economy within planetary boundaries? Do we create a society that provides decent living standards for all? We can give guidance for future technology and policy development. I think this is hugely important. Economic people, of course, do that as well, but they do it from a financial perspective. They give the government information about like, okay, if we do that and that and that, this will be the new value added. This will be the new jobs. It's purely from an economic point of view. You miss probably the distributional effects, and above all, you miss all the environmental effects. So my statement as the president-elect of Industrial Ecology is, there is a huge imbalance. We have at this moment 1,000 members in our society. Maybe there are 2,000-3,000 people that do the kind of work that I do. If I go to the Dutch Statistical Office, that office has 2,000 people, mainly economists. So one statistical office in one relatively small country has already more scientists in the economic field as we have in the industry ecology field. Well, that is a huge imbalance. So what we as a society say, well, we should become basically spread our knowledge and interest people in the kind of work that they do. But because if you want to create an economy fitting within planetary boundaries and complying with the sustainable development goals, you cannot do that without industry ecology. And you can imagine, particularly in countries like yours, Indonesia, India, South Africa, Latin America, that are on a quick development path, you really need to make the right choices at this point. Because if you make the wrong choices, China has built, I don't know how many coal-fired power plants, and they're now sitting with these coal-fired power plants, and that has to go down because the CO2 emissions are too high. Yeah, so that are all the kind of things that industry ecology can help policymakers with. So we almost say, well, maybe 10,000 industry ecologies by 10 years, something like that. Good, we exist, some basics, since 2000. 1,000 members, I already indicated, from all important research centers. It started out at Yale University, a very famous university in the US, NTNU in Norway. My university, Leiden, has a very big group. The ETH, that is a very famous university in Switzerland, University of Sydney, University of Toronto, Tohoku. A lot of really good people basically are there. We started out as a project managed by Yale. They did finance for us, but in the end we said we want to be a formal society. So we chose to do that under Dutch law. So we basically have registered ourselves with the Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands. We had a lawyer setting up bylaws that arranges that the society is democratically governed. So I really had to make a little campaign to be elected as the president-elect. Very much like a small version of what happened in Indonesia a few months ago when you chose your president. CML in Leiden is the post box. And like I said, we are governed by a board elected for 2 years from the global membership. What kind of activities do we do? Every 2 years, we have a major conference. 2023, we had a conference in Leiden with about 800 people. I think Victor was there and some other good people from Indonesia there. In 2025, and keep it in the back of your mind, it will be in Singapore, very close by, the first week of July. The abstract deadline is 15 December, so would you be interested to present things? And yeah, for maybe PhD candidates, we even have a little bit of funding to support them. For senior people, we expect that they can find the funding themselves. We make a differentiated, let's say, subscription fee for OECD countries and non-OECD countries. So the main trouble for you probably will be the travel and the lodging, although they probably also have, let's say, university rooms that you can use and that are not too expensive. We organize a so-called biannual conference. That's in the other years. We had one in New Hampshire, we had one in Switzerland, and that is a kind of funny conference. We have a morning program and a program in the early evening. And in the afternoon, it's free time. You can really, almost like the Greek philosophers, walk around with your friends and discuss about interesting things, that kind of things. We have an annual virtual Industrial Ecology Day that just was a week ago, 21 November, a virtual conference. We have regular regional and section meetings. For instance, there exists an Asian Pacific group that organizes every 2 years a conference, and there is a metabolism conference. And we have a flagship journal, the Journal of Industrial Ecology, that is quite well established. We foster our science in different sections. So we have a science for, let's say, material flow analysis. We call that socio-economic metabolism. We have a subsection for input-output analysis, life cycle assessment, circular economy, industrial symbiosis, urban systems, and islands. And if people have good ideas and they say they miss something, well, organize a group of members and make a proposal to the board, and usually that is accepted. What we now think that we also should do is that we should focus on specific membership groups or maybe regions. So we already have a student chapter that are PhD candidates. That is a large part of our community. And they have their own board. And you can imagine PhD candidates, they have their own things to deal with. So that is already organized. We have a very strong informal network in China that was set up between 2000 and 2010 by a project of Yale University. And what we do at the moment is we work with actors in India and South Africa to establish regional industry ecology communities. And I'm pretty sure that the board would very much welcome if industry ecology is really interesting for a group of Indonesian people and say, we want to become the Indonesian hub or maybe the ASEAN hub. We will listen to that very carefully. We would be very interested in seeing how we can support that. A few names about board members, it's me, Ming Xu, and some others. But we also develop now a strategic plan. We want to become better presented in key regions. So we are already very well established in the US, Canada, EU, and China. But like I said, India, Indonesia, Latin America, Africa seem for us quite important. And we want to support regional activities in such regions. We have modest funding for that. I mean, as a society, you basically ask your members to contribute for 50 or 100 euros if you come from an OECD country, much less so from developing countries, much less so if you are a student. So we are not super rich. But for instance, in 2 weeks, I go to India. And there we have the launch workshop of the Industrial Ecology community in India. And yeah, we supported that with a few thousand euros. So if the Indonesian community is very serious about, let's say, establishing an Industrial Ecology hub somewhere in Indonesia, and that's super serious, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Victor or Maxentius or whatever call me and email me, and we can see if we can help a little bit. So yeah, that is a bit already what I indicated. We very much would welcome strengthening industry policy in Indonesia. We have some monetary resources to help. So we have individuals like me. I have a visitor professorship in UNPAD. So from experience, I see at least once a year, maybe twice a year I'm there. So if you want to organize more, let's say, physical meeting, the next time that I'm around, I'm totally happy to support that. That doesn't cost a lot. Like I said, we have a modest budget for membership activities. who can support inaugural activities in a certain region. And like I said, we deliberately have the next ESE conference in Singapore to support strengthening industry ecology in Asia. And like we said, abstract deadline 15 December, so go to the website. And I hope this is a good basis for discussion to move forward here. And I think that's it. So, Maxenius, the floor is for me open for questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Takaria, for giving very interesting issue regarding the industrial ecology. I think we learned a lot from you, from the approach, the issue, and then how it's related to SDGs. I think this is very fantastic. And then you also rise on the importance of the association, yeah, the industrial society, industrial ecology. I think, I think we can discuss that later because I'm also working in the Center for Behaviors and Circular Economy. This is very close to what you
super
are doing.
Close. I agree.
Very close. Yeah, we can discuss that later. And I think. I would like also to say welcome to all the participants. I think we are great having about 40 participants in June. So I think now I would like to invite Dr. Victor, Pak Victor. What do you think about this issue? Right? I think Pak Tucker already mentioned that you are one of former students, of Professor Tucker, and then maybe you can explain how actually your research attaching this situation, and then how you can bring this industrial ecology into the Indonesian research in the current government, because if you see the current government really put a lot of greens terminology in medium term development. So how to implement this concept in some research? Maybe you can share with us. So Pak Victor, silakan, mangga, silakan Pak. You still mute, Pak Victor?
Oke. Untuk industrial ecology memang itu satu hal yang menarik ya, Pak Max ya, dan juga teman-teman. Sebenarnya waktu juga dengan datasetnya database-nya yang sangat kaya. Ini yang memimpin konsorsium untuk membuat semacam multi-regional global multi-regional input-output database untuk seluruh dunia gitu ya. Dan itu juga data yang sangat kaya yang mungkin kita justru Indonesianya sendiri tidak punya, dan itu yang saya manfaatkan waktu PhD itu sebagai data basis utama saya, Pak Max, yang dikombinasikan dengan tabel input output kita ya. Jadi dari sana saya bisa membangun extended environmental input output yang terutama saya kaitkan dengan biaya lingkungan. Jadi kalau misalkan di BPS itu seperti seasonal ya. Seasonal itu kan baru melihat dari sisi yang misalkan deflationnya, tapi belum ke masalah impact dan lain sebagainya. Jadi waktu itu saya mencoba untuk menghitung biaya lingkungan dari berbagai sektor juga, dan juga kaitkan dengan terutama masalah pencemaran udara, di mana data yang saya dapat itu dari axio base yang dibangun oleh CML dan juga ya konsorsium dengan NTU dan lain sebagainya. Itu terdiri dari sekitar 300 434 tipe pencemar udara Max gitu ya. Dan itu pun berdasarkan sektor-sektor ekonomi yang detail. Ada yang 105 sektor dan 200 produk lebih itu. Jadi itu apa, dan memang tidak terbatas hanya untuk Indonesia saja tapi untuk dunia ya. Lalu dari sana juga saya bisa memanfaatkan apa, si eh, terutama untuk ya database emissionnya yang sangat kaya itu apa, saya bisa mendekomposisi emission berdasarkan apa, eh, ya demand side ya, kalau di GDP gitu ya. Nah itu bisa bisa saya dekomposisi eh, by sektor juga ya, sektor yang sangat detail. Dan terakhir juga saya bisa memanfaatkan Axio Base itu untuk ya apa, in terms of industrial ecology tadi itu untuk apa, membangun eh, apa suatu model untuk melihat bagaimana dampak dari produksi electric vehicle baik dari apa economic aspek maupun dilihat dari environmental aspeknya. Nah, dari di sana apa dari ya CIO tadi, CIO lingkungan tadi yang di apa dikombinasikan dengan Axio-based database yang fit in dengan IO gitu ya. Itu waktu itu dipecah ada dua sektor baru ya. Untuk itu electric vehicles ya. Untuk electric vehicle sectors dan juga baterai for electric vehicles. Nah, di sana kami memsimulasikan ya apa mensimulasikan bagaimana produksi EV di Indonesia itu eh, dengan asumsi yang pertama itu apa semuanya diekspor. Nah, diekspor keluar itu apa cukup memberikan apa dampak ekonomi yang baik. Di sisi lain apa si emission bertambah ya, bertambah sedikit karena nikel yang asalnya di apa dijual keluar biji nikelnya itu kan diolah di dalam negeri seperti itu. Lalu juga saat ini saya juga dengan Prof. Arif Ansori ya sedang mensimulasikan bagaimana kalau misalkan adopsi dan juga apa produksi ya. Jadi bagaimana apabila apa masyarakat kita penduduk Indonesia secara masif itu beralih ke apa ke electric vehicles gitu ya. Nah, menurut data BPS kan penduduk Indonesia itu yang memiliki kendaraan 85%-nya dari apa kendaraan bermotor ya roda 2 ya. 15%-nya roda 4 seperti itu. Nah, ketika disimulasikan itu kita bisa kaitkan juga dengan neraca perdagangan di mana ketika ada apa shipping ya secara masif ke kendaraan listrik itu eh, fossil fuel import bills untuk fossil fuel akan drop gitu ya, akan drop karena apa penggunaan fossil fuel di sektor transportasi juga apa akan drop seperti itu hanya kalau tidak dibarengi dengan apa eh, investasi atau apa bauran energi untuk pembangkitan listriknya masih menggunakan batu bara, sebenarnya emisi tadi hanya berpindah saja gitu ya. Dari ya asalnya di sektor transportasi itu akan menambah emisi di sektor electricity yang menurut penelitian saya juga itu dan juga beberapa penelitian di berbagai apa negara, electricity sectors itu adalah sektor yang paling polutif dan apa costnya sangat tinggi sehingga apa kebijakan yang terkait apa konversi ke kendaraan listrik tadi itu harus dibarengi juga dengan apa eh, transisi ke pembangkitan listrik yang menggunakan energi yang ramah lingkungan seperti itu. Jadi istilahnya kan tadi si import bills untuk fossil fuels tadi kan drop itu bisa juga kan dialokasikan misalkan untuk sektor-sektor lain atau bahkan juga untuk membangun apa pembangkit listrik yang lebih ramah lingkungan. Karena ya di sektor transportasi mungkin di daerah padat penduduk di kota akan lebih sehat gitu ya. Karena udaranya lebih bersih. Tapi di sisi lain kalau misalkan batu bara pembangkitan listriknya masih berbasis batu bara, itu akan menambah emisi di sektor apa listrik ya. Dan kita tahu bahwa PLTU itu selalu dekat dengan daerah pesisir karena harus ada tongkang batu bara seperti itu dan itu akan membuat penduduk lebih tidak sehat gitu ya dan dampak lingkungan yang lainnya. Mungkin itu Pak Max ya pengalaman saya terkait dengan implementasi ya aplikasi Industrial Ecology dalam penelitian saya seperti itu. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you, Victor, yeah, for giving very brief insight and how you utilize the global data. And then it seems that you have also developed a new sections here in the input output. And I think that is part of novelty in terms of methodology and so on. I think we need to explore the the SEO based data for further research, and then also you discuss on the impact on electric sectors. I think that's interesting to see. So I think we still have about 20 minutes. I think I would like to invite of you in the Zoom to give comment, question, response to Professor Tucker and also maybe to Pak Victor. You may also raise your question in Bahasa. Don't worry about that. I will try my best to translate about that. So please, if you have any questions, comments regarding the issue on ecology industry or your experience so far, feel free to raise your hand. Any question, please just mention your name and your affiliations. Anyone? Say. Have any questions or comments, please? Okay, I think it's Lydia, Lydia and Prof. Atin. Okay, I will give my percent to maybe Prof. Atin from BRIN. Silakan Ibu Atin, time is yours, Bu Atin. Okay, Ibu Atin.
Thank you, yes.
Silakan Bu Atin.
Yes to unmute. Has to unmute.
Still. Oh. Bu Atin bisa di-unmute dulu mungkin ya. Nanti dilanjutkan oleh Ibu Lydia. Ya, silakan. We have to super girl. Ya, silakan Bu Atin. Silakan Bu.
Okay. Sorry because mentioned that the host is unmuted.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry about it. Okay, please Bu. Yeah.
And also I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Pak Max. Yes, Professor Tucker. Thank you very much for your giving us insight for the industry ecology. Well, I'm from BRIN, the same with Pak Max Central Research for Behavior and Circular Economics, actually, Prof. Tucker. In my mind, the industrial ecology is very close. Okay.
Okay, I can see your face now.
Yeah, I don't know. The host said that's okay. It's okay. Yes, Professor Tucker. To my mind, by seeing your and very keen listen to your presentation, the resource optimization and along with the waste minimization is very close with the one that you are talking with the principle of the industrial ecology. And Indonesia is a very big in mega diversity, I would say. So do you think that the restoration ecosystem will be also connected into the principle of the industrial ecology? Because I can see along with the supply chain, the industrial actors, for example, in the palm oil industry, we have a very big and very big gaps between the one that with the industry and also from the grassroots. In this case, is the farmers itself. And I would say that the industry cannot have this kind of business without the involvement of the grassroots or of the farmers. But the fact is the gaps in those along of the supply chain is very high. So I would think that I'm asking for your opinion. Do you think that this is the challenge of the Indonesian government to how to build between the commercial sector and also the one in the grassroots? How do they get along so that the ecological welfare at the end will be balancing for the ecology industry? That's actually my concern, Professor Tucker. And then the second one, Pak Victor, the implementation of the, mungkin dalam bahasa aja ya Pak Victor. Kebetulan kami sedang melakukan preliminary research terkait dengan aplikasi untuk electric vehicle di Indonesia. The problem is kenapa apa itu namanya konvensional motornya itu tidak bisa digunakan atau tidak bisa kita lakukan circularity begitu ya, karena adanya aturan. Padahal sebetulnya kebayang Pak, next 10-20 tahun yang akan datang sebanyak itu waste daripada motor-motor konvensional begitu ya. Dan kita tidak, dengan adanya aturan itu kita tidak bisa melakukan circularity yang sebetulnya bisa digunakan misalnya untuk digunakan kembali untuk motor-motor yang tanda petik kegiatan yang mekanisasinya itu belum terlalu tinggi gitu ya. Misalnya pompa-pompa air di mana banyak sekali sawah-sawah kita yang skalanya kecil-kecil begitu ya, itu sangat memerlukan hal-hal yang seperti itu, tetapi kita tidak bisa melakukan circularity daripada motor-motor bekas. Mungkin sementara itu Pak Max dan Pak Victor, terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih Prof. Matin. Prof. Tucker, we will have one more question from Ibu Lydia from Universitas Indonesia. Please, Ibu Lydia, time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Max, and thank you, Professor Tucker, for your presentation. Your presentation reminds me of one of my graduate work is analyzing how thermodynamics can be linked to economic processes. That was a long time ago. So, Professor, what is the mandate for international multinational companies to conduct material analysis in their operations in the developing countries, for example, Unilever in Indonesia? Because they are one of the bigger international multinational companies are more likely to be doing this compared to local Indonesian companies, which actually have a tendency to not share data and be a bit closed about their operations. I'd like to get your opinion about this. Because in Indonesia, there has been several efforts to, for example, map out the sources of plastic waste. However, when confronted with this information, the large multinational companies, which are actually the source of plastic waste because their products are very widely circulated, there has not been any response on something about changing their production or material use? Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Lydia. Okay, I will give time to Professor Tucker. Do you have any comment or response from the two questions from Ibu Atin and also Ibu Lydia? Please, Professor. You still mute, Professor? Yeah.
Yes. I think the two questions actually relate to the value chains and how certain players in the value chain can help or influence the partner ones in the beginning. So first, on the first question, I would say resource minimization and waste optimization, that kind of things. That is literally at the heart of industrial ecology. Yes, super close to circular economy. It's not for nothing that in the ESG we have a circular economy section. We basically say we are the science for circular economy because we do all this material work. What they did not emphasize, you talk about natural restorations. We look at the interaction of, let's say, emissions, resource extractions, and the impact of biodiversity. So we have people who look at biodiversity impacts of, let's say, agriculture, water extraction, maybe even changes of climate in species and so on. So actually, Iran, Roem, who is a current PhD of Padjadjaran, did that. He looked at the palm oil chain and he looked at provincial level if the EU would put in a ban for import of palm oil. Okay, what are the environmental damages for Indonesia and what are the environmental benefits? That kind of work. And what was quite interesting is that we saw that not a lot of palm oil would go actually to EU. So the EU is making a lot of noise, but the impact of the measure is not very big. The damage for Indonesia is not very big, but of course your government has to say, no, we don't like that. So yeah, that is a bit what we saw in the study, which was quite interesting. Yeah, that you see that both the environmental and the economic impact of a certain measure, we could calculate that. Then, and I think that links almost to the question to Lydia. I do agree that if you're Unilever and you use palm oil for Indonesia, I would say, for heaven's sake, if you are Unilever, help the primary farmers to, let's say, to farm the palm oil in a sustainable way. Help them to intensify the farming, that kind of things. That is in principle what should happen, because what you see in all these value chains, at the beginning of the value chain, you have a lot of farmers, let's say, typically food. Then in the middle, you have a number of giant companies like Unilever, Danone, you name them. Then you have, when it comes basically to the Netherlands or another country, I can do my shopping maybe with 5 supermarket chains. Yeah, that's it. And then we have again millions of consumers in the Netherlands. So these companies have an enormous power. And what usually is the best way of working, that you oblige these companies in the middle, the supermarkets, the big food companies, that they actually green their supply chains and that they help the farmers at the beginning of the supply chain. I'm not so aware of how that works with palm oil, but I have a very good example that for coffee, the biggest retailer in the Netherlands, a number of big coffee roasters like Douwe Egberts, they basically agreed to say, well, we are going to certify, we only want to work with certified coffee producers. We're not going to set a minimum price, but we know that if they want to have a certification of good environmental performance and whatever, we have a support program to help doing that. And we also know that, of course, the price will be a little bit higher. But we have a guaranteed good quality of coffee. And that is worth all the problems. And the other interesting thing is that if you look at how the value chain is, the pack of coffee in the supermarket is €5. And the amount of money that is paid to the farmers is maybe a few dozens of cents. So a cent more or less, or 2 cents more or less to make coffee production sustainable is not making the difference. And then it goes on. So I think these multinationals have an important role to play. Then the question to Lydia, what do they have to do at the moment? I'm afraid they don't have to do a lot at the moment. The only thing I see at the moment is, and I forgot, I think it's the the Global Reporting Initiative that most companies now have to start to report what is carbon emissions in your supply chain. Yeah, so they have to do that. But if you talk about biodiversity problems related to, let's say, palm oil production, well, that has little to do with global carbon emissions. You know, that is it. So at this moment, there is indeed a point that the companies are not reporting their material flows, and that often has a clear reason. If, for instance, this mobile phone again, it could very well be that the competitive advantage is, let's say, the camera or the loudspeaker or something like that. This is a Samsung. Samsung doesn't want to disclose with who they do business to get their camera in. You know, that is their competitive advantage. So often these supply chains, they want to keep that a bit secret. But I would agree that these companies should take more responsibility, and we have to think about how we can actually, by policy measures, we can push them to do that. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Tucker. So it seems that we have a question in the chat from Asi Halomuan. Yeah. Okay, Victor. Oh yeah, maybe Pak Victor. There's some question also from Ibu Atin. Maybe you can address that one first, please, Pak Victor. Oh, and also one question, Pak Victor, from the chats.
Yeah. Which one, Pak Max?
You can see from the chat. There's also another questions, and then one question also from Prof. Atin regarding the what's we call on the on motorcycle, yeah, motor EV, yeah, on motor EV. It's quite the difficult, yeah, for doing the recycles and so on. Maybe you can have comment on that one, Victor.
Yeah, sorry, Max, I can see the question. Can you repeat again? Maybe
first from Ibu Atin, first from Bu Atin, first Pak Victor. Maybe you can address regarding the
regarding
electric vehicle. There's issue on the circular. How difficult to do? Yes, the circular in electric vehicle. Yeah.
Thank you. In Indonesia, we know that the motor vehicles is used until they broke, and then until the motorcycle is out, and then we have some problems also regarding the conversion to electric motorcycles, because for what I know that to convert the conventional motorcycles to electric vehicle, motorcycles is also doable, but I think because of the regulation constraint and so on, and also the cost for convert to electric vehicle, motorcycle is also very high. And then regarding why we can make a circularity regarding the motorcycles, not just like in Singapore, America, where the old vehicles, it will be crushed and then reused to another form of product, from the old materials of the cars or motorcycles. I think regulation in Indonesia is quite did not support the circularity to have an optimal practice. Maybe that's it, Pak Mix, from now.
Okay, thank you, Pak Victor. So I think that is a big challenge, yeah, how we can develop the ecosystem for that ones. So yeah, I'm sorry, I just realized that actually the question is come on to my direct message. Yeah, so sorry about that, Pak Victor. So basically, the question come from Asi Halomuan, yeah, asking for based on your research, Pak Victor, do you have any experience or examples
Asking for what, Pak Max?
for the company, ya, the company perusahaan di Indonesia yang mungkin cukup baik dalam mengaplikasikan ekonomi sirkuler gitu ya, dari pengalaman Pak Victor, dan mungkin ada juga mungkin sharing best practice seperti apa perusahaan-perusahaan itu untuk mengurangi emisi karbon ya, mungkin dari pengalaman Pak Victor. Silakan Pak Victor.
Ya, baik Max. We have four project with WWF, ya, Worldwide Plan. Still on, completion. So we have several project on how to finance the green industrial estates, yeah, and we identify the financing mechanism from government or from international organizations, blended finance from banking sector, and so on and so on. And then we conduct a pilot project for West Java province, for the Rebana green industrial estates, the new industrial estate in West Java. The Rebana will be designed as green industrial estate from the beginning. So as we know that the manufacturing industry in Indonesia is dominantly reside in West Java. In West Java, especially in Karawang and Bekasi, but from the beginning, the Karawang and Bekasi is not planned as not planned optimally, from the beginning, and then now become crowded, because there are a lot of kawasan industry, industrial estates, and then maybe for 10 years, the industry will move to Subang and Rebana Green Industrial Estate, for example. Right now, BYD, Amazon, and the industry characterized as cutting edge industry is will move to and invest to Rebana green industrial estate. And then we have also project regarding the transition transition to renewable energy in textile sectors. For examples, KHTEX, KHTEX, Mac, very well, with KHTEX. The off-taker, the big off-taker, multinational corporation like Honey and Roberts, the clothing, production, big clothing production, ultimatum the KHTEX to ship to convert the primary input, the energy input from coal to biomass, ke cangkang sawit gitu ya. Saya nggak tahu kalau cangkang sawit dalam bahasa Inggrisnya apa. Cangkang sawit, lalu juga sekam padi, dan juga kelapa, itu sudah disimulasikan. Nah, disimulasikan yang paling dekat itu dengan cangkang sawit. Tapi untuk wilayah Jawa Barat kan sawit itu mungkin dari sisi logistik cost yang akan jadi masalah, sehingga itu juga mengkhawatirkan bagi perusahaan. Kalau tidak misalkan beralih ke yang lebih shifting to renewable energy inputs ya, the multinational corporation will not buy the product from KHTech. And also for Adidas shift their energy input to more renewable energy input using scam padi, ya, scam padi, and then other sectors like Superindo and hotels and make an energy efficiency planning for that, and many examples about regarding the how to reduce the emissions. A week ago, I conduct expert opinion polling, using the LP methods to gather expert judgment on the energy transition and also the financing of green industrial estates. And then we have conduct an complete survey, public opinion survey, regarding the energy transition and also the impact of climate change for West Java province that align with the pilkada, the election. The purpose is to connect to the next leader, to internalize the program, to more environmentally sound policy development. And then lastly, we have several engagement with provincial office, Bapeda and dinas penanaman modal regarding the green investment and also how to capture the opportunities to have FDI, the trends, the global trends is also shift to green investment. So and then there's a mechanism if the perusahaan, if the firm is can prove that they can reduce emissions from their activities and also can reduce the water usage for their activities. The bank will give low interest rate if they want to have financing from bank regarding this related to shifting to the economic activities behavior with the berwawasan lingkungan, lebih more friendly, economic environmental friendly. Maybe that's it, Pamit.
Okay, thank you, Pak Victor. I think we still have about maybe 10 minutes before we close this very interesting discussion. Professor Tucker, I have 3 questions for you from the audience here. I think the first one, as you realize that Indonesia is really a coal-dependent country, and we are try our best to transform the coal into kind of clean technology, and one of the way is to pursue with dimethyl ether, DME. I think this is kind of the more advanced technology. Actually, how do you see on the coal gasification technology and all the elements here in doing this. Do you see this is quite competitive in the future, or how do you think about that once?
Yeah.
And then yeah, the second question.
Can we do it one by one, maybe?
Oh yeah, okay, please, yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Maybe if you can close
Oh, sorry.
if you can close your yeah, good. I'm very skeptical about coal gasification because you rely on coal. You will cut carbon emissions, and you only can use carbon capture and storage, which is extremely expensive and so on. So I would really say, I mean, look for wind, solar power, that kind of green technologies, or maybe biomass if you can use that. I'm quite skeptical about any coal-based solution, unfortunately. That's the short answer to that question. So maybe now the second.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. And then the second question come from Rafid Subarti, I think from Medan, from Universitas Sumatera Utara. Actually, he asking about, again, still quite related to coal, but of course, we need to do transformation to new and renewable energy. And actually, the challenge now is how to make it more, the price is quite competitive for the energy when we're moving to new and renewable energy. And actually, and then how you see actually we can pursue affordability dimension for the new technology. Do you have any comment on that, Professor?
Yeah, but I think that is the only thing that gives me hope. What you saw in the last years it was amazing actually. If you looked at PV, China became such a big producer, and from innovation science, it's well known that if you produce more and more larger volumes, then you learn how to make things cheaper. And you saw that happening with PV, and you saw that happening with batteries. Yeah, so at this moment, you see that electric vehicles become almost competitive to petrol vehicles. Yeah, despite the fact that the petrol engine is totally developed and we don't have to invest anymore. The battery prices are still going down. Yeah, so I have good hope that, and that is, I think, indeed what particularly countries like Indonesia should think about. You have to think now already how the prices will be in 5 years or 10 years. Because it could be that if you now invest in coal-fired power plants, that may be now already not totally competitive, but you lock yourself in. You build a very large plant, cost you maybe $1 billion, and then you have to use it for the next 30 years. Yeah, so that is not a good way to go. I would rather say, look what you still have. So I think your president, Prabowo, said, okay, we have something like 15 coal-fired power plants. He wants to close them down in due time. I would say be very careful how you do it and in which space you do it. What I saw in Germany, they closed down all the nuclear power plants. Well, I'm not a fan of nuclear power, not at all, because you have to waste. But what you saw is that since they closed it down very quickly, the plants where you cannot use them anymore, and now they have to rely on gas and whatever. And with Putin next door, that is not a good situation to be in. So maybe with hindsight, it would have been better for Germany to gradually go down, build up your renewable infrastructure, and then see at what moment you can close things down. So I think that is the advice I would give to Indonesia. But really take into account that PV will still become cheaper, batteries will still become cheaper, and particularly for, let's say, day-night kind of like imbalances. Particularly if you go to use electric cars and you do that smartly, and you can, let's say, charge your electric cars during the day and they give it back during the night, you really can have very interesting futures.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I think there's one more question from Garan from Sukabumi, West Java. I think he has very good question and comment about that one. He said that it is necessary to integrate the industrial ecology into regional planning and connected it with SDGs and all the component of SDGs. And how do you see these connections when we're trying to improve the performance of agro industry, tourism sector, or also spark area? How do you see the application of this, Professor?
Yeah, in a way, very simple. You can, with industry ecology, with LCA, with input output, maybe less so with material flow. For instance, if you have the tourism industry, you can look like, okay, I have hotels, people travel around, they may use airplanes, they may use local transport. You can always see if you have a tourist in Bali and stays there for 2 or 3 years, what that person is doing. You can calculate the environmental impacts related to the expenditure of that person. Then you can start to look what are the really important big things. Could be the heating and cooling of the hotel. It could be the swimming pool. I don't know. I mean, you have to do a study for that. And that then gives you guidance about, maybe if you expand tourism, that is what we did not very smart in the current tourism hotspots like Bali. We have to do it differently with different technologies and different setups, and we do it like that and that and that. I'm pretty sure that industry ecology for the environmental part can help quite a lot. And the other thing, you talk about the SDGs, that is also about quality of life and that kind of things. Then I think the work that I very briefly showed of Ierlan Room can come in. What he is trying to do is really trying to look at, okay, what is the quality of life of people in different parts of Indonesia? What kind of environmental resources do they use to live? And then you can probably see that certain lifestyles, certain ways of, let's say, building cities. I mean, a very simple example, we all know that if you do time use accounts, commuting is one of the worst things that you want. Nobody is happy during a commute. When are you happy? When you are with your friends, have a good time with your friends. When you are in a mosque or in a church, that kind of things, when you really go to spiritual activities. So maybe organizing your country in such a way that you can limit commuting or make it more pleasant. I mean, it's a very simple idea, of course, and I see it's very difficult I'm now in Bandung, and my God, I mean, the traffic jams that Victor and I encounter sometimes are big. But I mean, these kind of things you really can see, and that can help people at different levels, at the local level, city level, and also at the national level. Okay, these are the kind of things that we can do to give people a better life while the impacts are the lowest.
Yes, okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Professor. I think there's one more question. This is the last one from our audience, from EXA, from UNPAD. This is a question to Pak Victor, actually. Pak Victor, this is quite similar with Prof. Atin question also. Do you see there's any policy, actually, how we can reuse, recycle, or reduce all the waste from electric vehicle? So what we are going to do with this lot of electric vehicle? Is there any policy to recycle any waste from that ones? Do you have any comment, Pak Victor? Still mute, Pak Victor. Maybe you can.
Ya, pertanyaan yang sulit ini. Ya, terkait dengan reuse, circularity ya, 3R gitu ya. Untuk electric vehicle ya, Pak Max ya.
Iya, betul Pak. Betul.
Ya, kalau saya rasa sih, kalau kita bicara apa untuk ya circularity ya tadi mungkin lebih cocok untuk yang konvensional dulu ya, karena yang motor electric vehicles itu belum banyak gitu ya. Kalau misalkan kita bicara apa ya electric vehicles and conventional vehicles, ya we are number 3 ya, Max, ranking number 3 from around the world that people use motorcycles Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia is yang paling banyak, negara yang paling banyak menggunakan sepeda motor gitu ya, peringkat itunya. Dan itu yang konvensional. Yang konvensional 85% pengguna kendaraan di kita itu dari roda 2. Lalu juga apa yang 15%-nya dari mobil biasa ya. Itu kalau mungkin kita bicara tentang circularity dari electric vehicles gitu ya, itu mungkin masih jauh ya ke arah sana, Karena mungkin yang justru perlu adalah tadi yang apa si kendaraan yang konvensional yang harus dimisahkan apa dihancurkan lalu digunakan dalam bentuk yang lain. Mungkin juga contohnya mungkin sebagai contoh di kita Kyushu Ekoton ya. Kita Kyushu Ekoton itu tahun 1960-an itu masih polutif ya industrinya dan lain sebagainya. Tapi sekarang jadi salah satu percontohan dari Green City gitu ya. Di mana tidak ada ya mungkin karena government regulation juga itu tidak ada lagi apa industri-industri yang apa dikategorikan sebagai politik industri. Di mana si apa industri-industri yang ada di kita Kyushu Ekoton itu tadi itu semuanya adalah industri yang apa mendaur ulang misalkan dulu tabung TV ya televisi lalu juga kulkas gitu ya dan juga lampu neon dan lain sebagainya itu eh, di mereka olah lagi dari seluruh Jepang itu ke sana seperti itu. Jadi ya kalau misalkan best practice-nya ya tadi mungkin seperti Jepang, Singapura, terus juga beberapa ini ya mungkin itu ditransfer ke to other materials gitu ya yang bisa digunakan seperti misalkan bajanya atau yang mengandung metal itu bisa dijadikan campuran untuk aspal untuk pembuatan material untuk pembuatan jalan dan lain sebagainya itu mungkin.
Oke. Baik, terima kasih Pak Victor. I think we have a great discussion this morning, so I believe we learned a lot from Professor Tucker and also from Pak Victor ya about this very important issue ya for Indonesia to be advanced country ya with mainstreaming ecology industry inside there. So I think we are again thank you so much Professor Tucker for your time and also Pak Victor for your time and also we are very grateful a lot of participants yeah in Zoom. We are about 45 now. Thank you so much for your kind attention and question response here. Dalam acara fokus forum kajian pembangunan FKP. And I think Ibu Lydia, maybe you will have to say something before I close this FKP. Please, Ibu Lydia.
Thank you, Pak Max, and also thank you for CEDS at Universitas Padjadjaran for collaborating with FKP on this seminar. If you want to attend our future seminars, please check our website. We actually have one on Wednesday with the Province of Bali Statistics Agency and Universitas Udayana on social mobility for middle class and aging population. Thank you again. Thanks everyone, especially the speakers this morning, Pak Victor and Professor Tucker. Thank you.
Ya, Bu Lydia mungkin sedikit mohon maaf sebenarnya kalau di judul kan itu yang ini ya toward low carbon future CO2 emission and economic growth in Asia. Ternyata mungkin paparannya ada miskomunikasi nggak deliver ke panitia di sana mungkin. Jadi mohon maaf mungkin itu sebenarnya udah nyiapin.
Ya, tidak apa-apa Pak, kita selesaikan. Terima kasih banyak Pak.
Okay, I think thank you so much again for your very kind participation for this forum kajian pembangunan discussion series. So we look forward to see you all for the next discussion. So I think we'll still have another discussion, but in other channels. So I would like to invite some of our colleagues from BRIN and other agency to join for the next meeting with Professor Tucker regarding for the some study research opportunity and so on. So again, I would like to thank you so much for your kind attention and then have a good day to all of you. Thank you so much. Okay, see you next time. Bye.